The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
All right, Sam, I get a pour. All right. A beautiful day in Sonoma.
It's a rosé day.
Sun on my back. It's going to be about 80 degrees today. Beautiful blue sky. Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Winemakers. I'm John Myers with, of course, as always, Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey. Welcome to our Harvest 2023 show. Wow. What's going on, guys? It's been a couple weeks.
Is it harvest?
Harvest.
It is definitely harvest.
You think?
Well, it's the one of the most relaxed harvests we've had in a decade.
Right.
How's that?
Well, relax to this point.
To this point, and the next couple of weeks are going to get great. The pace has been really slow.
Because everything is still not ripe?
Things are ripening really slowly. Yields are good, but not like, we're not flooded. The wine, and this is just like from the vibe from even, some of the more like worrywart kind of winemakers. You're like, oh yeah, just let it hang for a few more days. That's just the vibe. I don't know.
I think it's interesting because
even with all the the weirdness of the weather, or maybe because of the weirdness of the weather, right?
I mean, there's no doubt that that's going on. And we had last week 2 days where it hit 90.
2 or 3 days, and it was like upper 90s, right?
Yeah. Over 90, yeah, definitely
and,
95 plus.
And
but then 55 at night. At
Right.
least that's the way it was over by my house. It was a 40-degree swing.
Wouldn't Phil say that the plants like that?
Oh, it's great.
yeah,
It builds flavor.
Builds character.
Builds character.
there's no doubt that those couple days of 90 really changed stuff.
Moved things faster than anything's moved.
Right.
In 3 months.
Right. And so if you had stuff that was like ready to be picked, but you were waiting, then you might have seen it go from like these perfect berries to a little bit of dimpling and whatnot. Right.
Or you're waiting for a little bit of
or you're
dimpling
waiting
and
for a little bit of
Yeah.
dimpling. Again, just depending on your kind of your idea of what ripeness is. But those couple days made a difference. I haven't talked to anyone that didn't say it spiked a bunch of stuff. So I think people are kind of chasing their tails now. I was supposed to get some grapes today, and the crew didn't show up. I mean, they let them know ahead of time, but they didn't show up because they were overworked from the past few days.
Right.
So it gets pushed off a day. And to me, that just shows that it's starting to pick up.
Yeah.
Like picking, there's a lot more grape trucks on the road.
That's all the frequency of San Giacomo trucks on the road is sort of my like my barometer. You've seen these those trucks with those big stacks of San Giacomo bins.
Yep.
Which it means, but that's the crazy thing. Bart is and we're in the middle of October. They're picking Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in Sonoma Valley right now. That's like those.
Isn't that late August?
Oh, it's
normal?
Yeah. We're
Holy
6
cow.
on some of those things, probably 6 weeks behind normal. Those vineyards over there on Arnold Drive that are like Sonoma Cutrer and maybe
Les Pierre and
Rombauer,
some of Les Pierre and some of Durrell,
yeah, exactly.
Rombauer. Yeah, those are all.
Those were, and they're picked now,
right.
but that was within the last week.
Right. I talked to Gustavo Sotelo, from Scribe, and I forget the name of his brand.
Sotelo.
Yeah.
They have their brand new winery.
I just bought some of their wine from his new release.
Yeah. Their Scribe's new facility.
Right.
Saw him over there. He said they were like 75 to 80% done already. But that's kind of makes sense with them and what their vibe is. But
It's probably later than they've hit
but
that
it's
number in
probably
a
way
while.
later, in their brand new facility. There's no doubt that there's still a lot of grapes to be picked.
Yeah.
Well, where is Enterprise at this point in time?
Earlier, I don't know if it was earlier this week or late last week, somebody said 20%.
Whoa, really?
And this week was a lot, and tomorrow's going to be huge, but I don't think it gets us to 30%, maybe.
So when are you expecting the bulk?
The next 2 weeks are going to be insane.
Okay.
But you're talking about Enterprise, not 16.
Not 16,600's probably about the same place, about 20%, 10 tons or something.
This rosé is delicious.
It is.
I need to drink more.
Thanks, Brian. That's a good comment. It is. It tastes really good this
I mean, the
morning.
minerality on the nose. And then,
Yeah.
All right, for reference point, today's October 12th.
Right.
Tomorrow, October 13th, we will pick the Grenache and a little bit of tiny Mourvedre from Steel Plow for this wine, which is probably, I'd have to go look back at Instagram, but it's probably a month later than we did last year.
Yeah. I mean, Go for Run is 3 weeks later than I've ever gotten it.
Yeah.
And
What are you getting from there, Bart?
it's Zin. And Lazy Dog is, even, Morgan picks it a little bit earlier than Steve's last purchasers. But he's a solid 3 weeks behind.
I just saw Bedrock listed in the top 10 wines. Where was it?
Oh, is that the there was a bunch of friends in there. That was the Zin blend Eric Asimov article.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Boss Horace was in there.
Yeah.
Somebody
else. Buckland? Was Buckland on that list?
I don't remember.
Oh, maybe not be the price point. It was like a price point blend conversation.
Right.
Um,
and it was
Nice press for them.
marked Bedrock.
yeah.
Very good thing for friends.
Yeah, no, the crazy thing about this harvest, John, and where we're all at is that it's kind of, there's upside downness, that we will be picking, we're picking rosé at the same time that we're picking Zinfandel, and we still haven't picked the Rossi White grapes. We haven't picked the Roussanne, the Marsanne, and the Grenache Blanc, and the Brian's favorite Claret.
whoop,
And they're
whoop.
not, and it's they're not particularly close either. So we're coming into this place where, are we going to be bringing in Cabernet and White Rhones at the same time to the winery, and then it really becomes a struggle for tanks.
Space.
And
Yeah.
So this is going to bottleneck, right? You think is
Totally.
where this is headed?
that's exactly what it is.
I went and rented 2 small fermenters today because I won't have any space for anything, and I still not really sure what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to go find some more because it is all going to bottleneck, which I've never had that issue in the past.
Right.
And
For
then
the
on
amount
top
wine
of
that
that,
you make,
right,
and the varieties that you make to
Right.
have them bottleneck is just
right,
absurd.
they should be way spread out.
Right.
Like Zin should be done in time for Grenache and Mourvedre.
Right.
And so it's going to be interesting. And my co-seller guys, they're all struggling for space also.
Right.
And like Jamie said, his he always has at times where he gets 2 flips on his fermenters, and he's not going to get that this year. So yeah, it's an interesting year for sure.
Well, besides the lateness, what's it look like? I mean,
It is
grape quality.
Well, and I
You
think that's
said
the other thing that
not
is
heavy, but
keeping people unstressed is the quality is just is super high,
Yeah.
and everything's really clean. Even with we've had these sort of I hate to call them rainstorms, but momentary small precipitation events, except for right in the middle of the Vintage Festival,
Right.
while I had a group of auction winners from Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the middle of Muchas Piedras, and we get a 4-hour downpour. We've had these sort of rain events that haven't
resulted in anything negative.
Resulted in anything negative. Knock on wood.
Isn't that
like,
nice?
You're out there hunting for botrytis and rot and mold and these things that would be a problem, but they aren't. And I think part of it is we've opened up tons of things, taken leaves off to get
a little less canopy,
to get a little more air, a little more sun, and that also sort of sets you up for dealing with the rain. And fortunately, it hasn't burned us literally because we haven't had any this heat event again, quote air quotes heat event.
It was supposed to be like 75 all week, and all of a sudden it's hot today.
Well, no, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Right.
I mean, we're gonna have we'll get a little north wind, but because we've had this rain, we're not worried about the F word.
Well, and it was this morning. It was windy at my house, but it was
but not
dead
totally
still at the
bottom,
bottoms or the valley, which is kind of interesting. And just seems like the intensity of the sun isn't as bad as it is. So yeah, it's very exciting. I've got one lot of reds is dry and in barrels, and then the Evangelo Carignan.
You hipster.
I am a hipster, and I think it's going to be a really, really good hipster wine.
What are you going to age that in?
Right now, it's just in 60-gallon barrels. I'm trying to source a old punchin. I had a guy that had a guy, but he fell through. Somebody else got it. So for right now, it's just in it's in 3 60-gallon barrels.
I knew a guy who knows a guy who's, yeah.
And then, it was one of those things, Morgan said, really low, really, bad health on, very low ammonias, yans, perfect fermentation, like, no stress, no nothing. It was a little slow to start, which sounds like a lot of people are saying the same thing, but no stress whatsoever. The Beltane Sauvignon Blanc, again, kind of low numbers as far as...
And just cooked right through.
And it's still fermenting. It's actually taking its dear sweet time, but it smells great. Just moving along, keeps dropping.
So what do you have going?
So I have those two, and then I have the Malbec from Lazy Dog, and that's at about halfway through fermentation. And then
and that's rosé or red wine?
No, that's red wine. And then tomorrow we'll get Zinfandel, and Saturday Petite Syrah and Syrah, and then we wait for Cabernet, Grenache, and Mourvedre.
Those Petite Syrahs you brought in, tasty.
The grapes.
Yeah, you
grapes
brought the
taste
grapes
good.
in. Yeah.
Supposedly those are popular among the turkey, bird, deer families.
I was chasing turkeys out of the Syrah up at Rossi today. There was about 20 of them I chased to the fence line.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The world,
the
world appreciates that.
Thank you would be to Sam,
it'd be,
and then it's Stuart,
Artie,
and then it's
XYZ.
Artie, I think. Yeah, it was that way. So.
And really, it's thank you if you catch one. Because if you chase them out, they're just going to come right back as soon as you leave.
Well,
so when you
as I was
one,
driving, yes.
Can you roast them? Wild turkeys?
Sure. People cook them.
People cook them. I've never had one. Supposedly, it's kind of tough and gamey. You have to do some like serious, intense brining to kind of break it down. But it's supposedly delicious.
They're pretty lean. You can see that just watching them walk across the road, right?
Yeah, they are not butterballs. That's for damn sure.
No, they're made to run. For sure.
Born to run.
Not really, yeah, exactly. Not really to fly. Although they do if they have to.
Yeah, they have a lot of space. They always fly when my dogs are after them.
They need some takeoff, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonder if they eat truffles.
Emergency mode. Get the hell out of here mode. So. Well, Brian, you have been slammed at the tasting house. I mean, it's been a couple of wild weeks around here. I mean, really, the last time we got together, wasn't it with Catherine Russell? Did we do shows after that?
Maybe not. Chris Cherry.
Well, he's
Grenache
on now.
Day.
So Grenache might have been the last show that I was actually sat down for.
Venom before that, and
Oh.
I just looked on Facebook. A memory popped up that 4 years ago we had a big party with Nicole Rollet over at the Fig today.
Oh, is that when we did the brunch show
Yeah.
live recording? I wonder how that sounds. Fun one to go back and listen to.
Well, it's been busy around town. That's for sure. Everything seems to be really cooking. I mean, the restaurants seem to be full. They're having a good time. You can't find a parking spot on the plaza whatsoever.
I think the word is out that this is a great time to visit here.
Yeah.
The weather is
Perfect.
couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah.
Especially this year, it's fun to be in the wineries and go to visit wineries because there's stuff happening, but everybody's got enough time to say hi.
Right.
The word is out. We've been talking about this for years. September, October.
It's the best time.
It's the best time, which has always driven me crazy. This is also when they decide to do all the road construction, close all the roads, September and October. Well, this is July and August, June are nice summer months, but this is peak tourism season.
Who would think repairing a bridge over Sonoma Creek on Highway 12?
It wasn't even Sonoma Creek. It was actually Hooker Creek.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Which is even like small, Hooker.
Smaller.
The bridge would fit in this tent.
I mean, I actually
They actually did a great job, though.
They did, and you know what? And having those people down there, waving people through the stop sign at Arnold and Madrone was huge. And I went through it a number of times, and it's daunting when you're at the roundabout and you think, I'm going to be here for an hour.
Yeah.
But it only ends up being,
Wait, is it done?
5
They're
to
done.
10.
It's
Yeah,
back
it
open.
is. Yeah. 5 to 10 minutes.
Our long
was really
national
ever it.
and local nightmare is over.
Yeah.
Wait till they try and do something with 37. That's going to be the national local nightmare.
Well, I mean,
And that's the thing, is it already is, right? How much worse can they make it?
that's not going to happen on any of our lifetimes. So,
Oh, man, I was going down to Nevada the other day, and it was backed up literally from the racetrack way past Lakeville. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the traffic there is just so nasty. But yeah, I've been talking to a lot of tourists, especially at the Fig. The bar at the Fig is like tourist headquarters these days.
That's just like your one-man Nielsen report on what's going on in the
Yes,
Sonoma
absolutely,
tourism scene.
Absolutely. I talked to Tim Zahner.
We got the Myers report on local
everything's
tourism. The Myers bar report.
Thank you. I like that.
Yeah, we should.
I think I might start that.
Yeah, that's another T-shirt. The Myers bar report.
Brian, how you doing? Other than eating some cheese.
Good. No,
you're very quiet today, Brian.
I had 2 days off. I'm waking up.
And he's got a library tasting at 1:30, so
That'll be fun. Yeah, we've been.
What do you got on the library menu right now?
11 Hommage à Gallet, 12 Dos Limones Syrah, 14 Oakville Grenache, 11 Estate Zin, and then 16 Simon's Cab, which is pretty baller right now.
I bet.
Are you doing anything with Severson anymore?
No, unfortunately, that vineyard is sort of ceased production. We now source from we call the Charmar Vineyard, which is owned by the Welsh family, around the corner. And there's some Cab Franc, and Grenache out there. We actually have some new wines out. Well, we talked about it a little bit on the release podcast. We have the 2019 Charmar. We also have a 2019 Sonoma Valley Cabernet, which is Charmar and the last year of from the Severson Vineyard.
It's fucking great.
Which is killer.
Yeah.
Should I be drinking my 2010 Severson Cab Magnum right about now? Is it laid down long enough?
A couple more years. The 9 is tasting really good in 750, so
Okay.
you got some time, John.
10's a year that we drank something 10 recently.
The Estate Zinfandel, the 10,
Oh, yeah.
and it's gone. We sold it.
I mean, that's the thing is this vintage, 10s and 11s are interesting benchmarks for the 2023 vintage. Kind of the last time we had this much, again, quote unquote, rain events during harvest and that kind of like cool, foggy summer. And those wines are lasting forever. maybe they took a minute or two out of the gate to sort of open up. But they're great wines
So,
for aging.
what do the both of you think about the rain and why it hasn't been a problem this year? I mean, normally that's the bad word during harvest.
Well, I mean, I guess it all depends when the rain comes and how much there is. I mean, we always get a little storm that, doesn't even really, it settles the dust and that's about it. But these little events have been more than that. I think down here in Sonoma, we've skirted a lot of what Northern County and Mendocino have gotten. So we're fortunate that way. And maybe even Napa's gotten more because they're farther inland, and as it sweeps down, it's just been kind of staying away from us.
We
I
seem
think
to be at the
because
very
we're
bottom.
buying grapes from very good growers who have done the work before, and so there's not issues. I think that's what it is.
The other thing is that the way this crop is developed and the health of the crop, and the fact that it's not and it hasn't gone through a big heat event
That's
and
a huge part
melted it and beaten up the skins and dehydrated things, that the berries are still full of juice and plump, and there's no damage to them. So this little bit of rain just kind of looks like water off a duck's back, literally. The other piece of it is, we've had these little bits of like wind. We've had nice days afterward that, dried things out. I think that maybe it slowed, those first couple of times and that one over like the Vintage Festival weekend, maybe slowed things down a little bit. But that got wiped away when it hit 95 last week.
Yeah. I mean, slowed it down, but didn't, again, remember after the Vintage Festival rain that day,
the sun came out and it was windy. And it was windy.
Right. And so, if it would have stayed wet and damp for 2 days, or if the fog would have come in, it would have been one thing. So we've just been very fortunate, I think, in the weather we've gotten.
Well, even the rain, it hasn't rained for more than 4 hours at a time. I mean, off and on, and it's been spitting, and
right.
So we haven't had like 2 or 3 days of rain.
Right. And I think something Sam says is, everything is just the way the crop came this year, and the crop being late, maybe it's better suited for the later weather. Yeah. I don't know.
Have you ever seen it this late? Has it ever been later?
I mean, I keep thinking about 2018 and how late we were picking grapes in 2018.
But that was different in that
one lasted for
the year was
ever.
Right.
It started early.
It started earlier, and the year was perfect. Like there was a tiny rain event. It was a huge crop year also.
Right.
2011 was late because of the weather. 89 was on the later side. Again, it was a year where there was rain and people, waited or picked.
Well, we had no real adverse weather this year at all. And the whole county, Napa too.
During the vintage you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, once it stopped raining.
Yeah.
Once it stopped raining in
And
May,
the snow melted.
Right.
And the snow melted.
Yeah, no real adverse weather, John.
And the dams held. And the highways reopened.
I mean, but I also don't think this is not over. They still have, Enterprise still has
80-90%, yeah.
75% to pick.
Yeah.
And that's a huge amount.
And it'll all be in the next 3 weeks.
Right. Because when it is November 1st, or certainly by November 15th, things are going to be different. Like, I mean, that is one thing. Canopies are shutting down.
Yeah, you're starting to like yellow and red leaves
right,
out there,
yeah.
and
the red clay block at Rossi is like visibly yellow.
Right.
So that's you're seeing that all over the valley.
And basically, what that means, John, is that once the leaves are yellow and turning colors, they're not photosynthesizing anymore and building more sugars. So starting to shut down, and what you get to at that point is what you get to. You're not going to push that any further.
What's the latest they'll let it hang over in Napa with their cab?
That's the thing, is a lot of Napa cab is being picked or is ahead of us because they were much warmer this summer than we are on this side of the Mayacamas. So I know Oakville's
Have
picking.
you seen stats on that? I mean, can you actually document that?
Sure.
In general,
Weather
we get
stations.
Yeah.
I mean, we get more maritime influence here, not just from the coast, but from San Pablo Bay, right? So our grapes have longer hang time, build more complexity, get warm, get cool, get warm.
It's kind of like
cool.
the Sahara Desert over there.
It doesn't cool down at night, John, like it does over here. That I think is a big deal too.
I wonder why. It's only 10 minutes away.
You get
Huge
the
mountain range.
2,500-foot mountain range that blocks that that Bodega Bay influence.
Right.
You think about Sonoma Mountain gets to a couple thousand feet, right? But between Sonoma Mountain and the coast, there's nothing but those like rolling hills of
Two Rocks,
Sebastopol, Two Rock, West Marin,
Not much at Two Rock.
Bodega Bay,
There's Two Rocks.
Tamales Bay,
Yes. I like Two Rock.
Dos Piedras. So that plays a lot, and even on those, we've had a lot of nights. I feel like this summer, and you guys are sort of almost even more into it than I am, where the fog comes in and just sort of like sits on the Sonoma Mountain Ridge and pours cool air into. Even if the fog doesn't come in, it pours cool air into the valley. That's not making it to the next, across the next mountain range and into the next valley.
And then also remember that in Napa, their fog comes in where ours rolls over the hill. Theirs has to come in the bay, right? So it has to come in, and it's got farther east to go in the bay, and then it gets sucked up the valley. But what really is, when it's coming in through the bay, what's sucking it through is really it's the Carquinez Straits into the delta. So, they don't get, it's not like a direct line for the fog to go up Napa Valley, where Carquinez Straits, Contra Costa County straight out there, where we get some of that like they do, but we also get it over the hill.
Right. And you also, think about it, like how far north Calistoga is. Right. And so, even the sort of like
quite
narrower, longer valley that is Napa Valley, that sort of has a little curve to it that isn't as conducive to the fog rolling in the way that, if you sit out at Want Strawberries and look up Sonoma Valley, it's basically just this little V that can hold the fog and the cool air in a different way than the Napa Valley can.
And then again, the way Sonoma Mountain comes into it is that if you think about it from, call it bedrock to the Beltane Ranch,
right?
There's a lot of times where there's fog up the valley till you get to bedrock, say to Madrone Road, and then there's no fog. And once you get into Kenwood, you have the fog that's coming in through the Santa Rosa Plains,
starting around like Salt and Stone kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always talked about how that's a banana belt through there, and that's one of the reasons why, because it is more protected.
Yeah.
Have you been talking to anybody up north or in Paso or Lodi? And how are they doing? I mean, I see Jason Haas a lot on social media.
Talked to a little bit of the Paso crew. We bought some puncheons from Epic Estates, Jordan Fiorentia down there a couple weeks ago, and they were kind of in the same boat, just getting started. My favorite thing that I've seen on the internet this harvest was Herman's story.
Yeah.
And this was last week. They hadn't picked anything, so they did a reel on Instagram where they dumped in like ball pit balls, Chuck E. Cheese balls,
practicing
into their destemmer hopper sorting table situation, and over the audio of Allen Iverson's practice press conference did a little thing where they turned the machine on, and out of the ball pits they were pulling course lights for themselves, because that's basically all they're doing down there. Is not only was it a great comment on its own about this harvest, but the fact that they had that much time to put that together and do all that is because they have nothing else to do right now. So if that means anything, I think that a lot of them are in the same boat. You look at what Morgan's posting about. He's tasting and just starting to bring in his Santa Barbara County Syrah, which makes a big part of his Syrah program.
Wow.
Over at Bedrock. So
Santa Barbara.
But see, I don't think that's necessarily that much
like
later
on normal time frame.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's 8 hours south. Also,
that's true. I mean, it's just such a different climate down there. Different influences, southern.
Do they grow anything in the Big Sur area at all? South of Carmel.
There's not a lot of flat land there.
No,
Yeah, you
there's
get
not.
over, but if you get over the hill from Big Sur, you're talking like basically you're in the Santa Lucia Highlands. So a lot of that.
Well, and in between there's Carmel Valley,
right,
and there's definitely vineyards up in Carmel Valley.
I think you got to get off the coast.
Yeah.
To find flat land. There's also not a lot of water in Big Sur.
Right.
I mean, it's affected by big water events and rain events and stuff. But if you probably go to drill a well in Big Sur, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So you get inland from that, and there's a lot of water.
Speaking of drilling wells, have you seen this salt water in Louisiana coming in and threatening everybody's drinking water in New Orleans, etc.? I mean, it's not good.
Same thing's happening in Sonoma Valley.
Yeah.
Salt water
Up
Well,
to
yeah.
Napa
To
Road,
the-
basically, in wells in the south end of the valley, coming out from the
That's
bay.
one of the things that's kept that area from being developed more than it has.
Well, I think, Brian, you told me that when we went to Truchard with a bunch of folks from the FIG one time, you were saying that they had to claim all the rainwater into their reservoirs because every time they drilled a hole, it came back with really high salinity.
And they're in that weird spot, right, too, in between sort of Sonoma and Napa.
Right in between, yeah. Like on the earthquake line.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't think that area there would be as bad, but it's certainly
flat.
down. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, like New Orleans is about to lose their drinking water. So it comes from Mississippi.
Right.
Although I'd hate to be drinking that shit anyway, man. So,
Not enough fucking
what's up?
Not enough filtration in the
No,
world.
no.
Oh my God.
God. Oh, man. Well, what's next?
Well, this is episode
Yeah, let's talk about that. 298.
298.
So we want to have everybody call in and get listener
I
comments.
mean, not everybody,
Well,
but some people.
Everybody we can get a question from.
Yeah, and
Talk.
and so we're gonna do something special for episode 300.
That's five
Special
five-
for us.
5
You may
plus
not
years.
think it's special.
No, it's 300 episodes.
Well, special
man.
for us. You mean technologically challenging and requires pre-planning? Yes, that's special for us. But we're gonna call it like a listener appreciation sort of episode. So
Perfect.
we'll get some call-ins. We got to set up the equipment and test that out. But we'll also just stay tuned to our social medias, the Winemakers Pod, and all of our personal accounts. Instead of you asking us questions like we've done before, we want to ask you some questions. We want to ask about some wines that you've discovered through listening to the show over the last 299 episodes. Places that you've visited, people that you've met who are other listeners, things that you've learned, God forbid, that are things that you learned that were true, things that you learned that turned out not to be true.
Right. Call us on
Right,
things
call us
that
on
we
our
said that
lies and our
weren't true.
bullshit.
Do you think the earth is flat? That's always a question out there.
I'm sure Brian has some theories.
On the flat?
Refer to Kyrie.
What?
Refer to Kyrie.
That's basketball players know what's going on.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I see Isabel is coming back, right?
Isabel will be back in November, which is probably right around the time that we'll be picking Grenache for Arden Kramer, which is perfect. She'll be here while we do our extended intensive winemaking processes for the Oakville and the Rossi Arden Kramer Reds.
Does that mean they're done in France?
I think that as of when we talked to her earlier this week or last week, they were pretty much wrapped up. Really early harvest there. Challenging harvests all over Europe, it sounds like. I don't know
that was
exactly
my
what
next question.
What the challenges are, but I've heard it's been tough, sort of, different problems, different places.
Well, the climate change is the one issue that I see in how people are literally struggling to figure out what the hell to do because it is getting very intense in France.
Yeah.
Bordeaux is like, what the hell's next, man?
Yeah, I think that's their, heads on swivels.
Yeah. So, how are they going to be dealing with this? I think that's a really interesting question we should ask Isabel
Okay.
when
I
we
mean,
get her on.
I don't think, they're so regulated. And we talked we
Take
talked
off the
about that.
chains.
Yeah, I mean, but it's so highly
I know,
regulated.
but
It's so traditional.
Climate though is different. I mean, there's nothing you can do. Climate is unregulated, so
I got it.
I remember
The question
talking
is will they change?
What do you mean?
I mean, we talked about it one
regulated?
time. Is like, will they let them plant something else in Burgundy?
right. Or Charles Beeler talking about not being able to water the
Right.
Movedra in Bandol. I mean, they're just going to have to come up with new solutions
Well,
or
and
buy
their
land in the
winemaking-
Himalayas.
Uh,
Right? Who was it that told us that?
What's
Do
that?
you guys remember that?
That said what?
Buy land
Someone
in the
for
Himalayas.
it was like the largest wine
Yeah.
corporation in the world bought a bunch
I
of
think it
land
was
3,000
Charles Beeler
feet
talked about
up in the Himalayas, and they're going to plant grapes.
Yeah.
I mean, so
a new AVA.
well, it would be a Nepalese viticultural area. It'd be an NVA, John. Or maybe
All right.
if you want to get in trouble with the Chinese, call it a Tibetan viticultural
Ooh,
area.
there you go.
How's everything
Syrah
look
from
up?
the Tibetan plateau.
Right.
How's everything looking at
One with
Monterosso?
everything. All I know of Monterosso really is following along with Brené's Instagram account,
Right.
which is constant source for entertainment and
Oh
enlightenment.
yeah.
Including
and the D Wade show.
right. Most importantly, Dwayne Wade out there picking grapes with his posse. With George Walker, friend of the program. His chef Richard Ingram was out there. His cousins with Brené's man, King's dad. So it looks like they're having fun, but also, I think she's weeks behind her normal schedule. And they were trying to pick in these a couple of these little rain events and canceled night picks, because they'll do there's so much fruit out there, so many so much acreage. They do 50-60 ton night picks, all by hand. It's just like an insane. I couldn't even imagine. But then when you postpone those, then it becomes even more of a problem out of it.
Well, you guys talk about night picks because I have people in the tasting room all the time that ask me about that, and I know when you're doing a lot of stuff by hand, like the Enterprise Vineyard crew, like if you're getting out there at night and you have the big floodlights, like it creates shadows. Like there's some dangerous stuff. Do you think the reason people pick at night is because they can get another shift out of a crew that's going to be busy during the day, or do you think people actually think that it makes a huge difference to get your fruit in 3 degrees colder?
Well, it's more than 3 degrees if it's done correctly.
Okay, so
so picking at night for the sake of picking at night is not the right reason to do it. Let me get Mike just quick, and then you can give the grape growers perspective. If you're not doing it and the grapes aren't cool, then what's the point of doing it? And then I see that I think you don't get as selective as picking when a night pick. You get a lot more leaves in the bins.
Harder to pick out the botrytis.
Harder to pick out the botrytis. You something looks like a solid bunch of grapes and the bottom half is all raisins. So anyway, Sam,
Does
what about you?
optical sorting catch that stuff?
I mean, if you have an optical sorter, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
You have $1 million to put
Okay. All right.
on your production line.
How about human sorting?
Yeah, we do a lot of human sorting.
AI sorting.
AI sorting. We'll see. Those weird AI hands with 17 fingers might be really good at pulling jacks on the jack table or something. I believe that the night picking trend began before a labor law change in California, which was that essentially outdoor labor didn't get paid overtime on a day rate overtime, like you go over 8 hours. But indoor, meaning like cellar workers, winery workers, would get paid overtime. And as a result, the strategy was pick at night, be able to deliver the fruit to the winery as the winery's open, and cut down on overtime hours in the winery by having that 8-hour day start when the fruit arrives early in the morning.
And
Brian, I think you're going to have to make something up and tell a nice story.
well, no, and then the other thing is that Sam's exactly right, because especially with white grapes. So white grapes are more susceptible to the heat. Right. So delivering cold fruit first thing in the morning is really ideal.
Yeah.
Also, it takes a lot longer to process white grapes.
Why? Why?
Because the press cycle, when
you fill the press and then you squeeze it, run it, and there's a few hours, and then you empty it and then you do it again.
Right.
And there's a lot of standing around waiting.
And it's one thing if you're a large winery and you have 3 presses and they're all running kind of at the same time, where one's ending while you're filling the other, that's great. But when you work at small wineries like a lot of us do, and you share presses with other wineries, you could be there for hours just waiting to get your fruit processed. So again, if it's cold, better that it sits cold while it's waiting.
Phil should just showed up.
And then and
yelling at us from the car.
And yelling at his wife, who's
right.
Almost acknowledged him. Nah, she waved.
And so it makes sense in that case.
You need to call him over. I want to talk to him.
Well, we'll see if
his
mobility is
understood.
Is increasing, but not all the way there. Brian,
wave goodbye.
Who's that? Paul is leaving on a golf trip for a couple of days.
Nice. Where he's going?
I don't care. I'm so fucking jealous. I'm in the middle. I haven't played golf in a month. I'm in the middle of harvest. He's going on a 3-day golf bender. Trip. No.
Junket.
He'll have a great time, and much deserved couple of days off for Paul. But I'm totally jealous. The night pick thing. Back to the night pick thing though. It still to me doesn't make a ton of sense,
right?
Because you're not actually starting the pick at the coldest part of the night. Midnight is not
point, right?
Right. Midnight is not the coldest time of the night. The coldest time of the night is just before sunup.
Right.
So, Enterprise we have full night pick equipment. But, when we do that, we like to start at 5. Go from 5 to 7, 5 to 8. And that's when the air is the coldest, the fruit is the coldest. If it has to go and sit at the winery on the crush pad for a few hours waiting for, press space or waiting to get processed, it's starting colder at that point.
Because if it's 90 degrees, if the fruit's 90 degrees at 5 o'clock when the sun goes down,
it's still 80 degrees.
It's still
80
80 degrees
when they're starting to pick it. Yeah.
Right. So that makes no sense.
So I think, I don't know. I think maybe people have sort of gotten just hooked on the night pick concept.
I guess. Yeah. I always thought
like
that was kind of absolutely.
Well, it was
That's
also
what people ask me about.
It was when it was first starting. Don't forget, they also said it was about for the pickers, because they like to pick at night because it was cooler, and that was another selling point of it.
Yeah, that sounds like something that somebody said about people that don't speak English and couldn't say it for themselves.
I mean,
couldn't contradict it for themselves.
So Sam, again, that was things that were published when night picking became popular,
which
right?
was in the last 20 years or so, right?
Even less than that.
Yeah.
I mean, has it been even 10 years? I think.
Well, people use it like in their advertising and social media stuff. Like
it looks
night
great.
picks,
Yeah.
Like it's,
you got it's all the shiny vests and the headlamps and the big, the big wing light things going over the rows.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they do, a lot of it, the night picks, are so that you don't see that it's mechanically harvested.
So when you get a load in, this is average load, what's it weigh?
Well, it depends what side the container is.
There's so many variables there.
So,
all right.
half-ton
and the
container.
processing ability of the winery. Yeah.
I want to back it down to how much can somebody pick at night? I mean, what's an average?
Well, I mean,
of a night work.
Go ahead.
All
right. So the
not a matter of a night. It's what can a guy pick in a day?
The lugs, the picking pans, the picking bins that we use, sort of the industry standard, 35 to 40 pounds.
Okay.
And on a fast crew on a
40 feet for one of those.
Again, it totally depends on the vineyard, the variety,
Yeah.
the year. There's been, you go to Old Hill on a big year, and some of it was like, probably some of it this year, where one of those old vines fills a pan. And you get 30 pound, 10 clusters that weigh 3 pounds each, and you're filling that thing up every vine. But say 10 minutes they're filling one of these up.
Yeah. Okay.
And which is probably even long. It's probably more like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So say 5 minutes. So you're filling.
Well, these
12
guys work fast.
Oh, super fast. So you're doing, and guys and gals, 12 an hour. So 30 times 12 is 360 pounds. Right?
And they pick for how long?
Depends.
So you can
Call
do
it 2
1,000
hours.
power. Oh,
So call it 2 hours.
Okay.
2 hours of picking. So each person is going to pick
half.
half a ton
Yeah.
in an hour, in 2 hours. And you have a 10-person crew. Just keep things, you're going to, every
So,
2 hours, you're going to pick 5 tons. That sounds about
So
right.
they move through
So-
when it's time. They move through and they're done.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
Ain't no dick
So
in the
during the height of when I was at Kenwood, and at the height of we were a big winery, the Chewy's vineyard crew, the picking crew was 100 guys, and we would sometimes pick 100 tons in a day, but that was all day. That was starting at sunup, and there would be days where they'd finish at 3. They'd take a couple breaks and take a solid lunch, but it was like each guy picked a ton. And that was prime picking, and they would fly through that stuff.
And it was also a time when it was straight piecemeal payment too.
Correct. And it was cordon, right? So it was perfectly laid out. It was at the height of 10 tons to the acre, and you just kind of went along and stripped it,
Right.
But that's a whole different thing. Those guys worked so
And you're
fucking
going into
hard.
those big 2-ton gondolas.
Yeah, and they worked hard, and there was water and stuff, but it was brutal. It was brutal.
I remember being on picks, John, as a kid. I don't know. What I was doing, it was certainly not a safe place for a small child to be, but at the Leveroni properties, that my dad would run these picks, and every picker had a punch card. So you'd fill your bin, and you'd bring them up to the trailer, and you'd hand a punch card in, and the punch card would get punched, and you'd be holding on to this thing. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the pick, you'd turn your punch card in, and how many punches you got was how much you got paid. So doing that, ton a day, intense mega picks was way more a standard practice in those days. Where now, there's different pay models and value on quality over quantity, and not just destroying things on your way through.
Right. And that's exactly it. You're right. It was pick as much as you can, and there was a lot of
Throw it and slosh it.
right. And there was a lot of banter that went on. Like if the way they would lay out the rows with 100 guys, you'd be on top of each other, and if you were the slow guy, you heard about it. And
because you're slowing everybody down.
Right.
And
And you're taking money out of their pockets because you're all a group. So that was
play through.
Yeah, not even play through. You want to talk about harassment?
Certainly not a toxic workplace
Yeah,
environment.
yeah, exactly. I think we're in a much better place with the way picking is handled now than what it was back in the 80s. And
So
whatnot.
coming back, dogfight? No, friendlies.
friendly dog.
Incoming friendlies. Coming back from San Luis Obispo a few years back, I go past all that Central Valley grape, and it's nothing but grapevines on the right side of the road.
Right.
Nothing for as far as you can see. How do they pick?
San Benarsari, that's called.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. What?
San
on
Basari.
on I-5 there.
On 101.
On 101, like that sort of the south
North
end of
of
the Salinas
yeah,
Valley.
yeah, exactly.
A lot of that is machine harvested. Okay. And at this point, most of the grapes in California are machine harvested.
How does that? What does that do to the fruit?
Well, it's a lot better now.
It's
than
a
what
lot
it used
better
to
than
be.
It's actually really cool. It's kind of cool the way they technology is kind of cool the way they do it.
There's like sort of rubber fingers that go over the vine in the fruit zone, and are sort of like gently popping the berries off the rachis. So like, you know, when I come in, there's a bunch right over that, you know, you go with a knife or some clippers and you cut the bunch off and it has the stem.
Right.
I mean, when you get grapes from the
It
grocery
is a
store,
legit bunch.
it's a legit bunch. With the mechanical harvesting, it's just knocking those berries off. So what's
Stems are left on the vine.
Yeah, the stems are left behind on the vine. And again, it is a lot better than it used to be, but it's still, you know, you're
taking everything.
You're taking everything, and you're breaking the berry.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
what I
process.
wondered.
And so, you know, a lot of those places. One of the things that's happening now, especially with some of these big production things, and more, I think, with white grapes than red grapes, but it's happening also, is they're processing it in the field also.
Well,
So you're getting, you know,
How's that?
as you're picking with the machine and the gondola gets filled, it goes to wherever the staging spot is, and they have a mobile crusher, and it doesn't need to be stemmed. They're either crushing it and putting it into tanks, or pressing it in the vineyard and putting it into tanks and taking it in tank to the winery.
That's wild.
And you know, doing their inoculations, adding their sulfur in the vineyard. Because the other problem with the mechanical harvest is, because you're breaking these berries, if it's going to sit for 4, 6, 8 hours in the gondolas, there's juice at the bottom that's going to start fermenting and start getting weird. So they're cutting down that time from when it gets, you know, popped off the vine to when it gets processed and sulfured and inoculated.
And, you know, the company that makes probably the most used optical sorter makes mechanical harvesters, and there's an option to have that worked into it. So yeah, the technology is without a doubt, but the fact is that mechanical harvesters still can't pick a lot of the vineyards that Phil farms.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
You can't get up there.
You know?
rolling down the hill.
Could you imagine a Cayman mechanical harvester?
Right.
There was
up there.
I'm looking over at my mom sitting over there. There was a book that my parents used to read me when I was a kid. This is this memory that's triggering right now. And I don't remember. It was like a cowboy who had a ranch, but his ranch was like an incredibly steep mountain, and he had bred cows that all had right legs that were longer than the left leg, so that they could graze in a circle around this mountain. And that's what you would need a mechanical harvester that, like, the right side was way shorter than the left side, so you could go along the terraces.
Yeah.
Pecos Bill or some shit like that. You remember that? Yeah. I'm gonna have to find that. I've told Althea about it. I want to read it to her, so we got to find that book.
Hey, since your mom's here, can we ask about olives?
That was my
Because I remember last year it was November 5th was the harvest date for the olives, which is coming up.
And actually, you're going to have to do the exact title that she has with the olive board in California. Yes.
Well, her title here is COO at the Winery 16600, which is Chief Olive Oil Officer. COOOOO.
Hi, Arden.
Hi.
Welcome.
Well, thanks. I just was overhearing your conversation about harvesting, and when I first met Phil, we harvested. When I first met him, we got paid by the box. So you got $1 a box. On a really good day, you got 30 boxes.
Wow.
You know, bread was.
When was this?
Bread was a nickel.
Bread was 79 cents a loaf. 1977.
And your rent in Sonoma Valley was $20 a month or something, if that.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think.
I lived in a shack.
Right.
But
which these days, where that shack was based on location, would be like $10,000 a month with a view of San Francisco Bay and privacy. Land.
After that, we picked at what is now Repris, Moon Mountain. It was called Glen Ellen Vineyards at the time, and we got paid by the ton. And you were on a crew and got paid by the ton, and so we were picking into wooden boxes, and the boxes were really heavy. But I was a really fast picker, so I would pick and I would pull my box into the middle of the row, and the guys would bring me an empty box and haul my box to the bin, and then we got paid by the ton. So that was.
And I think that's.
Remember what that was? What the rate was?
Oh, we made way more money picking by the ton than we did by the box. That's all I can tell you. But we didn't make a lot of money.
Let's see all your fingers.
I do. I have a lot of scars.
Because you had those little the little hook picking knives.
Yeah.
Only no
No serrated. You sharpened your knife at lunchtime so that it was really
Right.
sharp. And
Oh, the guys! I mean,
Love
they're
that.
sharpening knives every second they get because the sharper your knife is, the faster you're picking.
that's right. That's right.
Do you wear a mesh glove? Steel glove?
No, we didn't wear anything. I mean, we wore clothes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Till at the end of the day.
Unless it was a full moon.
At the end of the day, anything went. But
So you are with
you did invite me to.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love it. You are with the California Olive Oil Board.
I am
What-
no longer
Oh,
with the
okay.
California Olive Oil
But you were
Council.
instrumental in getting.
Yes, I
dated.
was. I was on the. I was the first tier of the California Olive Oil Council taste panel when it existed. They now use a
Don't say a machine.
somebody else. They use a taste
AI.
panel that is they contract out with the taste panel.
Huh.
That's all I can say.
Okay.
I don't even know. who
But
it
you
is
were
at this
instrumental in getting the freshness dates or pick dates or used by. I mean, am I wrong on that?
No, our taste panel tasted olive oils. It's a trade organization, California Olive Oil Council, and we tasted olive oils of member producers to determine whether the olive oil was extra virgin or not. Basically, we were a quality control panel.
What's the difference there? Extra virgin and virgin? Can you
Well,
tell me?
extra virgin is olive oil that has no defects and has a certain chemical analysis that meets certain standards. Virgin olive oil is olive oil that has not been adulterated. So, like, flavored olive oil is not virgin olive oil, but virgin olive oil can be defective or faulty in some way.
I mean,
That is the difference.
Okay, so obviously you can go to the grocery store and kind of scan and go, okay, that's crap. This is decent.
Well, I can't truly honestly do that by just looking at a bottle, but I have certain amount of knowledge. Like, I always look for the harvest date on a bottle rather than the production date or the bottling date or the use by date, because that could mean anything. But you want to purchase the freshest oil that's available, and right now the oil that's on the shelf that's made in California, it was harvested in 2022.
I got to do a photo shoot in Spain 25 years ago, where they brought in olives and pressed them, and it was very cool to do.
Yeah.
And of course they were right from the farm.
Yep. Well,
And-
Spain has more olives than people, probably.
Oh, I'm sure.
Can you talk about
Acres and acres and acres and acres.
Can you talk about what's going on in olives this year?
This year, I can talk about what's going on in our
Yeah, that's
orchards.
all we care about.
Last year we had a stellar year. The trees were loaded. Every tree had olives. The olive fruit fly was minimal. Fruit fly damage was minimal. This year, and I attribute it to weather. We had a really hot summer last summer. We had a freezing cold winter. So the olive fruit fly really has been mitigated, at least in the orchards that I've been looking at. There aren't as many olives. So, the olive harvest or the bearing of the fruit on the trees is cyclical, and usually it'll have a really big year and then a not so big year. So we're in a not so big year cycle in our orchards.
In a non big year, is there more intensity?
No, it just has to do with the amount of olives on the trees. I mean,
Intensity
we have
is
some.
a factor in olive oil.
Not necessarily, but because intensity has to do with variety more than anything else.
Arden, I was up at your place one time, and all of the olive trees had this really cool silvery look to them. What do you?
John, I didn't know John was in politics.
So, in years past, and this year also, we have used a product called Surround, which is basically what is that? It's like I think it's like a clay. And we spray the trees and the olives when the pits begin to develop to trick the olive fly into thinking that the fruit isn't good enough to lay your eggs in. In a really bad fly year, it kind of works, but right now we don't have a lot of fruit fly out there. So
Good,
yeah.
good. I mean, we've got an olive tree that somebody let grow. Obviously, it's like 5 stories tall in the back of our house, and all it does is drop fruit, and the dogs eat it. But I mean,
It's where the fruit flies live.
exactly. That's what I was going to say.
That's where the fruit flies live. That's
know.
why, in the springtime when the olives are going into flower, you see the Snow Mission Gardens send out a blast email, spray your trees to non-fruit, because if you don't spray your trees to non-fruit and you're not planning on harvesting them, the fruit fly is going to multiply in your trees. And
Well,
go
every
everywhere.
time we go to the farmer's market and bring anything home, they're fruit flies.
It's a different fruit fly.
It's
though.
a different
Is
fruit
it?
fly.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a specific fly that lays their egg in
Olives.
and then the egg turns into this larva, and the larva eats through the olive and basically rots it from the inside out, and then you get horrible tasting olive oil.
I imagine. It's like eating the worm at the bottom of the tequila bottle.
So, but
Even worse.
Yeah, at least the worm's got tequila around it. So in short, good quality, low yield olive harvest to be expected. Is it late like everything else? Are we going to be picking the olives later this year?
Oh,
than usual?
I've been looking at our trees, and the olives are beginning to color up, so yeah, usually we don't pick until the 1st of November. I suspect it won't be until Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And hopefully we won't have a freeze in between now and then,
Right.
and that would really ruin the olives. So we're playing cat and mouse with the weather, as we are with the grape harvest.
Right.
And the tomatoes and everything else this year.
Right. I have like a half a dozen green tomatoes hanging on my tomato plants.
Man, we've had
I think
just a bumper crop this year.
I
It's
think
been
I'm gonna
amazing.
fry them in some gluten-free flour.
Yeah. Time for fried green
Right,
tomatoes.
they're not going to get ripe.
Yeah.
And I see Alice. Everybody's here today,
It's a
man.
family affair.
Yeah,
Family business.
I like it.
Right. You have to keep your head on a swivel at all times because you never know who's around the
And
corner.
did you see our harvest pictures from our 16600 harvest? That was a blast.
Yeah, I did. Looked like fun.
3 generations on the
That was
on
really
the
great
trailer
photo.
pulling
Yeah.
leaves.
And
Yeah.
no one's
Yeah.
toes got run over.
Nobody's missing any toes or fingers. Hudson at age 7 had a pair of scissors in his hands picking grapes with Juan Oliveros, who's probably the fastest picker in the company. These others he's maybe slowed down a little bit now that he's a manager and drives around in a truck all day. But if he said that, he'd go. If he heard me say that, he'd go faster. But Hudson was keeping up, learning how to pick from the best. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was learning to pick more than one cluster at a time.
Right, hold on to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he was like holding like 2 and 3
Right.
clusters. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you got 2, and Hudson's like, no, man, there's 3 here.
Child labor laws, Sam. Just
They're not getting paid, John. It doesn't matter. There's no breaking of any laws.
what's coming up for the holidays?
It's a
Arden?
volunteer
you got big
service.
plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Mm,
Are you even thinking about it?
we're
You're gonna have
thinking.
folks
we're
over
thinking
for-
about. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to go anywhere.
We're,
Cook a
didn't
wild
we-
turkey
Didn't we
from
cancel
Kenwood?
our harvest, our Thanksgiving plans? Yeah. we're gonna be pressing Grenache for Thanksgiving.
Changed our Thanksgiving.
Grenache instead of turkey.
Yeah. Well, Grenache with your turkey.
I'll bring you some, Sam.
Well,
if you
Grenache
need.
Nouveau. We'll bring you some, John.
Grenache
Cool.
with the stuffing, how it has like sage and
Perfect,
and cornbread stuffing. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
I'm with it.
Yeah.
Seriously. Love Thanksgiving, man. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, you know,
It'll-
it is a cool time. You know, you get with family, you have a good time. And, you know, there's nobody completely dysfunctional in our family, so we don't have arguments.
If you think there's nobody
Political
dysfunctional
arguments.
in your family, then you're the one who's
You're the one,
dysfunctional.
John.
So glad I don't have a life.
None of them are saying that.
Right.
Well, you're probably right. What can I say?
All right.
Hopefully, we'll have some new olive oil.
Yeah.
For Thanksgiving.
You know what? We went from saving your olive oil for special occasions and then to using it all the time.
Oh, you have to use it right away.
Oh, really?
Oh, I mean, the sooner the better. It doesn't. Olive oil doesn't get better with age. You
You're
know.
supposed to buy small containers and just constantly use them.
Well, and you want to make sure that the olive oil you buy is in a dark green bottle or in a tin. And again, you know, harvest date is very important. And yeah, it's like, you know, fresh juice. You don't want to drink old orange juice. You don't want to use old olive oil.
Well, new news to me. So but like I say, we use it for everything now. So
Yeah.
it's
You know,
just-
it's a constant educational process with our customers who buy the olive oil because, yeah, you know, it's not inexpensive, and it comes in these small bottles, and we don't make very much of it. You know, on last year's bumper crop, we sold out in June. This year's light crop will probably be sold out in March. So people. And they buy wine from us that, you know, like your bottle of 2010, you know, Severson Cabernet and Magnum that you want to hold on to. So people, they bring home a bottle of 16600 olive oil, and they have that same mindset of like holding on to it for a
Absolutely.
special
Yeah.
occasion.
Yeah.
Where, and it's totally the opposite of the wine.
Okay.
The moment you get it home, you have to use it to really like get the most out of it. And the longer it sits on your
Well-
kitchen counter, the worse it's getting.
Especially after it's been opened, because then it's exposed to oxygen, which
Yeah. you're right.
oxidizes it and,
Yeah.
you know, then becomes rancid more
that
quickly.
happens to every bottle. I mean, regardless, you've got a big bottle of olive oil.
Don't buy a big bottle. Small bottle.
Bingo.
Or unless you use a lot of it. Like,
Right.
Well,
like
you
we
know,
do.
the cool thing is everybody.
There are a lot of really good brands of olive oil produced right here in California that aren't super expensive, that you can, you know, buy a 750 or a 500 milliliter and pour that out. And
Well, Sam,
use
you
it.
gave me like a half gallon last year of some great olive oil. I mean, but
I did.
Was it one of the shiners?
Maybe.
no, it
We
was
did. We did some into Magnums. Some like at the end of the bottling.
No,
we just,
this was somebody else.
this was somebody else's.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you regifted it, but it's all cool.
Okay.
We
I
used
regifted it.
We
Sounds about right. So if you gave me olive oil and you're listening, thank you. We loved it very much.
Well,
Please do it again.
the key is everybody gives wine for Christmas and takes wine. We give olive oil. We send olive oil.
Well, and it's
all
also
over.
it's the season, right? You know, this is when the holidays is when the olive oil is in and fresh and at its best. You know, the olio nuovo phenomenon. You know, from this year it'll be between Thanksgiving and New Year's is when you will have the opportunity to experience the freshest, most intense flavored, most amazing flavors of olive oil that you're ever going to get.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I mean, I learned something today, so that's good.
Yeah.
Hopefully, everybody
Use
else
it.
does too. Yeah,
Use it, buy more, and
Use
then
it,
while
buy more,
while
buy
you can,
wine. Yeah.
while you can, because it'll be gone quick.
Man, your library tasting menu was
Isn't that fun?
Incredible.
I think that's
Wow.
Brian's excuse to get to taste all the old wine,
Well,
but it's something you can book it on our website. Look at that plug. You book it on the website. You can call and book it. And Brian is constantly playing with that menu, and as we have there's not a ton of those wines left, so he'll Coravin them. You can buy a couple bottles, and then when they're gone or they get to the point where I don't want to do it anymore because I want to hold on to something, we move on to change the menu up. So we do a couple of them a week. It's fun.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Any shout outs?
We do have an event coming.
And
Our
got
Vinyl
a
Sunday
big-
Harvest Party, October 22nd. A little bit later than normal, 3 to 6. as opposed to 2 to 5, because the band is David Gans and his Doom band.
Oh yeah,
Critical Envelopes,
That's
which
gonna be
is
awesome.
a deep cut Grateful Dead reference to Critical Envelopment, which is like a old weird jam they did in the 60s. Critical Envelopes, and before the party, he will broadcast his Sirius XM
Cool.
radio shows Saturday
That's
afternoon
great.
radio show Tales from the Golden Road. So he'll do that from here, so you can, even if you can't make it on October 22nd to the Tasting House for Vinyl Sunday, you can listen in, and we'll probably
It's only on
prop
Sirius.
Phil up in front of a microphone, and we'll do some interviews live, and talk about shows and music and wine and the whole thing, and then David will also, assuming all the technology works, basically since COVID started, he has done a small short set of live streamed songs every afternoon, like every single day, whether he's at home, whether he's in a hotel room in Wichita, Kansas, about to go do a gig. He'll do 5 or 6 songs starting at like 3:00 in the afternoon. So we will, assuming, again, knock on wood, the technology all works, live stream
And this
his
is
show
October 22nd.
October 22nd,
Sunday?
Sunday afternoon.
Perfect.
Costa's Tacos coming, doing some tacos. I think it'll actually be sort of a truncated version of Brian's library tasting menu. Will be some of the wines we're going to pour some old wine, celebrate this harvest. It's been a great harvest. It won't be over. In fact, it'll probably be the most fucking insane time of the harvest, right then in the middle of it. But that's
And David has a new book out. Hopefully,
that's right.
He'll be bringing his book to sign for people who want to purchase.
Yeah, his book is I'm forgetting right now. But it will be
Obviously
new.
on the Grateful Dead.
Yes.
It has a beautiful cover.
Okay. We'll find out what
I
his
look
book is.
forward to seeing
We'll
this.
throw it
It's
up on
great.
social media also.
Hey, I've got a great stash of books from here. The Dead,
Yeah.
Stanley.
Yeah.
Both signed. It's
Yeah.
great. So I'm looking forward to
You
this.
got to mix in a little literature and a little art and a little music with your wine, Some good food.
Perfect.
That's what we do.
Sir, Bart, anything? Your shout outs?
I do have shout out Wine Club members. Thank you very much for all of your orders. Wines are going to start going out on Monday with your piece of amphora in package.
Okay.
Excellent.
Did Travis Barkley, who on social media, did somebody take a shard of amphora and use it to make a needle to play records with? Or was that just like somebody making a
No,
joke?
that was someone who was making a joke. That would be something that he's going to do with his shard of amphora. And I told him I would send him a piece of obsidian from Rossi, and he could use one of those.
Yeah, that
also.
might be a little more effective.
Right.
Yeah.
And then new wines are all up on the website for those of you who aren't club members.
But what are you doing with your life if you aren't?
I mean, with the discount, you should be a wine club member. And so those are all available. So please sign up or order away. And then I'm doing a winemaker dinner at the Glen Ellen Star
Ooh, nice.
on November 21st.
God, that
Tickets
place
will
is
probably
good.
be on sale in about a week or so. So keep your eyes open for that. More information about that on
Gotta
the way.
love the Star.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Did you see the big article about Mike Benziger in the paper the other day about late harvest
Late harvest cannabis?
beautiful buds?
it's the same thing. Those warm days and cool nights that build our flavors. Improvised Lives, David Gans' book, Improvised Lives, Grateful Dead, 1972 to 1985, which would be sort of his peak era of being a follower before he became the Grateful Dead Hour and all that. Yeah, the same temperature swings and diurnal shift that creates the flavors that we're looking for in grapes and wine builds the crystallization and the trichromes and the pungency and potency of the cannabis crop. So it should be a good year. The rain I think has been a little harder on it than the grapes, but
That's his strain, La Bamba.
La Bamba.
So it's very interesting. So Dane, a lot of Dane's friends live in Santa Rosa, so I spend a lot of time driving back and forth from Sonoma to Santa Rosa, and you notice a little bit during the day, but really it's at night when you're driving down Highway 12, right around where Arnold Drive, where the nursery is. The aromatics of the cannabis is unbelievable along there. You know where I mean? It's by the botanical gardens. And for some reason, I don't ever notice it during the day, but at nighttime, it's so profuse going through there. And, you know, my son is now 16 years old, and I know he's thinking the same thing that I'm thinking. But we just kind of sit there and be quiet and listen to the music.
Just turn the music up a little bit and pretend like neither of you were there. Yeah.
Well, you know,
I wish my dad wasn't here. I'd be smoking pot right now. I wish my son wasn't here. I'd be smoking pot right now. Seems like there's a common ground you guys could find.
It's just so amazing, like how aromatic it is right now.
Well, you know,
right
Bart,
now.
in Chicago, it's totally different aromatics.
Yeah.
Believe me. Yeah. And, you know, it's scrap recycling and plants belching crap. And, you know, so, you know, when I dust off the tables out back, I get dirt, you know,
Right.
soiled dirt. In Chicago, you get grime. And that's it.
Right.
It's just, it's so nice to be out here. Beautiful.
All right, all you listeners, thank you very much.
Stay tuned for the listener appreciation stuff popping up on social media.
Next week's $2.99, we'll have someone.
Think about it.
Somebody
here, almost worth.
So you don't have just to listen to us.
All right, thanks everybody for listening. We are indeed the Winemakers. Thanks, Sam. Bart. Yep. Brian is on duty. Arden, thank you for so much for joining us.
Is this my mom's first appearance on this podcast? No, she was on Always Bite Goes On.
Maybe.
I was on a podcast
with Brian and Sandra.
Yeah.
with Brian.
I don't think she's ever sat in here.
Well, that's
All
a good
right.
thing. Breaking new ground.
Yeah. It was a great episode too. I wasn't, but or maybe I was there listening because I wanted to learn about olive oil. I think I was there. Yeah, it was great.
All right, everybody, thanks again for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Subscribe, review, tell your friends.
Perfect.